you guys like damage? Of course you do. That's a stupid question. I don't know why I even asked that. I released a Gara vs Frost video quite recently, and I went over their similarities and differences to have a visual representation of what they do to help pick out the perfect frame for you. And in that video, I was showcasing some background footage of Gara just walking into enemies while the enemies just stopped existing. And some peeps wanted to see a build, so here we are. The Walking Nuke Gara. The build is very simple to pull off. The build offers a lot of universal applications, no melee incarnate weapons required. You have no energy problems, you walk up to enemies and they explode as you're dealing millions of damage, and you don't have to worry about violence. Yes, you don't have to worry about violence removing your Splinter Storm. This is an old school Gara build, but with the help of all the quality of life we have available now, we get insane amounts of power creep at our disposal. The build is accessible to people who have been playing the game for a little bit. If you're new, don't complain you can't do the build. Get real, please. But you can always work your way towards the build. It's called game progression. Yeah, people forget that exists. Now, let me break it down for you. It's all about pre-stacking one crucial mechanic, combo counter. But what if you don't want that combo counter to run out? You have three options: Neramon, Dexterity Arcanes, or Melee Crescendo. That's exactly how you pronounce it, trust me, I know. And I'll be utilizing that arcane on my melee weapon. We stack up to 12 times combo and then chill for the rest of the mission. Make sure I have my elemental damage buffing Helminth active, press 4, then follow it up with a smack to shatter the glass ring and build up my Splinter Storm. And then just walk up to enemies and they go poof. To explain more why I do such things, let me break down Shattered Lash, Gara's first ability, because I have to do this every time so people can understand, yet they never do. Along with that, you get to see some gameplay loop, the setup, and the build. Alright, so let's take a look at the first ability, Shattered Lash. Now, looking at this ability, you can see it has two damage values, Puncture and Slash. Now, this is because it has two modes of attacks, your Quick Tap and Hold Cast. Quick Tapping will thrust out Shattered Lash and will deal Puncture damage. Holding it down will do the swing motion, knock enemies down, and deal Slash damage. You cannot proc any status effect because this ability has its own stats, and unfortunately, it has 0% status chance, 0% crit chance, and a 1x critical damage multiplier. Now, how do we see these stats? Well, you don't, because it's a hidden freaking stat. Yes, it's annoying, and D needs to do something about this or rebalance Pseudo Exalted. Now you just heard me say Pseudo Exalted, because this weapon is an exalted weapon, but not really an exalted. Usually, if we were to look at an exalted weapon, you could see something like Baruch, his Desert Wind. It can be modded. It scales with its own mods on the Warframe and the Warframe mods. The difference with Pseudo Exalted, it scales with the Warframe's mods and your equipped melee weapon. Now, let's go over all the things that Shattered Lash will scale with. As already stated, Warframe and equipped melee weapon. Now, does the melee weapon matter? Sometimes, if you're doing specific things. These specific things entail funny damage with their first ability. And for melee weapons that work with Shattered Lash can be anything except combo pausing melee weapons. So, no Zorus or the Grigori and Livia, and some weapon traits affect Shattered Lash, along with Incarnate Evolutions and Kuva elemental damage bonuses. And yes, even skins. Currently right now, I'm using the most basic bitch stat stick, the Jaw Sword. Now, what is a stat stick? And this is a great segue into stat sticks. Stat sticks are vessels. Now, in these vessels, you put mods. For example, I put Prime Pressure Point. This is now going to affect the damage of Shattered Lash. Putting on this mod, you'll see green numbers pop up on the side. This does not dictate the damage, because all of the core base stats of the weapon do not transfer over to the ability. When you put mods on your stat stick, you're not modding the weapon, you are modding Shattered Lash. You can see we deal 1,904 damage. So when we spawn enemies, we're going to do our puncture attack. We did 4.7 and 3k. We put in pressure points. Our damage went up to 5k. You see the difference right there? Now, what else is affecting Shattered Lash? Well, elemental damage. So if we put in Fever Strike right now, these two multiply each other. As you can see, just for example, on the side here, when we put in an elemental damage mod, our total damage increased. So if we go back and test out our damage, way more than what we just did. Look at that, 15k from the original. Now, what are some other things that will affect Shattered Lash? Well, it's physical damage. So since it deals puncture and slash, you can add puncture mods. For example, Augur Strike. This will increase its damage output if and only you use the puncture attack. So if you're to put Buzzkill and do the puncture attack, you will not get bonus damage. I will demonstrate this. Still doing 15k. What happens if I do the slash? It's a lot more damage. These guys are just low level to demonstrate something. Don't worry about that. So you can see the damage did ramp up when we use the other attack. So if you're going to mod for physical damage, make sure you use the appropriate attack mode. But we won't be using any physical damage for this build. It's just going to be base damage and elemental damage. But we also have another factor to increase our damage, and that is with combo counter. Now, reaching max combo does affect Shattered Lash, giving it a 3.75 times damage multiplier. This is a final damage multiplier. You may be wondering, why are we stacking so much damage and combo on Shattered Lash if we're not going to be using this as a damaging ability? And this is where we get into the combo. When you have your Splinter Storm active, you can see right there we have 595 on the bottom right. If we shatter our fourth ability, all the shards will be absorbed by the second ability. So we shatter. Now we have 11k on our Splinter Storm. Now the damage you deal to the fourth ability using Shattered Lash is influenced by your mods on the weapon. This is why we mod for it. And because we're not directly attacking enemies with Shattered Lash, we don't have to worry about crits or status proccing. That's why it's all about modding raw damage. How would the build look like? It will look something like this. Now, I'm using the Jaw Sword here. This is the most accessible stat stick for Gara. I'm not using any incarnate weapons. We have base damage. This is its own augment. Truth is a mechanic when you get some affinity. Don't worry about it. It means nothing for this build. It's just about the free base damage. This base damage is similar to Spoiled Strike. Spoiled Strike gives you 100%, but without the negative. As you can see, you can stack both of them, but we don't need to worry about that. We have 2 elemental damage mods right here to form Corrosive, and 2 additional elemental damage mods to form Blast. I do have a ribbon for this just to showcase what kind of ribbon you want. You want a ribbon that has base damage and 2 additional elemental modifiers with a negative, preferably. But if you can get base damage and a high elemental value, then that's also good. The negative does hurt us on this build because we're performing melee finishers with melee crescendo. Now, to counteract this, I'll just be using Prime Fury, but if you do not have the negative here on this ribbon, which is just a demonstration ribbon, put anything else. Additional elemental damage, or if you want, you can even add the physical damage. That's up to you. But in this case, I am kind of El Bozo with this negative attack speed because I'm doing finishers. I'll put Prime Fury here just to counteract that negative. Where I'm using Melee Crescendo. Yes, that's exactly how you pronounce it. Trust me, I know. On finisher kill, gain 6 initial combo for the rest of your mission. Now, initial combo is not like traditional combo. It is permanent until you die. So if we were to attack enemies right now, you can see on the bottom right, we're building up combo. Now, this combo will decay and disappear. Boom, it's gone. Now, if we want initial combo, we need to perform a finisher. And usually when you perform a finisher, you would have to do a stealth attack or something like that. So how are we going to do finishers on Gara to get melee crescendo? Simple, by using the Vazarin Focus School. Now, in your Operator Drifter, using the Vazarin Focus School's second ability, you will drag in enemies and group them up. Now, this is called Ragdoll Grouping. Now, you can see a little prompt there called Ground Finisher. Interacting with that ground finisher counts as a finisher. Let's demonstrate. Also, here's another thing. When you perform an ability with Gara, you can also trigger her passive, which can blind enemies, and this is also a nice way to do a finisher. So you don't necessarily have to use ground finishers if you want. Now, the chance to proc the passive is 15%, but it scales up to 20% the more you do abilities. So performing a quick transference counts as an ability. Now we have 12 times combo. You can see right there on the bottom right, it does not disappear. And when we do a heavy attack, we're going to consume that combo, but it's going to go all the way back up to 12 times. Now, if you were to use an incarnate weapon, you can utilize this to get your incarnate activation, which is, of course, going to be more damage. But we're just using a basic bitch stat stick here to demonstrate this build. I'm using Nourish as my Helminth ability. It gives you the viral elemental damage multiplier, which then amplifies the damage on Shattered Lash to then amplify the damage that I get when I consume it with Splinter Storm. And now that we have 12 times combo, our Shattered Lash is doing a lot more damage. Now we activate Splinter Storm. It's starting off at a base of 624 right now, because I do have a little bit of Multi-Augmented already activated. Cast our Nourish, and then boom, we get damage on our 2. And this damage will then deal damage to these guys. Of course, it's nothing too big right now, but it's still killing them. And when you cast your 4th ability, it refreshes the 2nd ability. Now, hopefully you understand the mechanic of Shattered Lash and how we stack damage on our 2nd ability. So now let's go over the entire build. With my Archon Shards, I have 2 yellow tau for the casting speed. This, of course, improves my animation so we can cast our abilities faster. And 3 Tau Forge Reds here for the bonus strength. This, of course, increases the damage I deal and the buffs on my Helminth ability, which happens to be Nourish. This is here to spread the viral status effect when enemies attack me, and of course add more damage to my weapon to then affect the damage I deal to my 4th ability to get a bigger number on my Splinter Storm. And let's not forget, it's an energy multiplier. So picking up energy orbs and all that, I will never run out of energy. Taking a look at the build. I have Arcane Fury here. On critical hit, there's a 60% chance to get 180% melee damage. This is base damage. This is like a primed pressure point, but only when you crit. And we're easily going to be critting with other means, which I'll get to. And then Multi-Augmented. When you kill enemies, you get an increment value of strength, which stacks up to 60% at 250 kills. Now for the aura, of course, I want a bit more base damage, so I'll be running with Steel Charge. This is a 60% melee base damage mod. And of course, it gives us a larger capacity when we use this. We're going to have Primed Sure-Footed here for the knockdown and stagger resistance. I'll be running Primed Continuity. This is going to be our only duration mod and nothing else. And now for the strength increases. We'll start off with Blind Rage. We have Nourish, so we want a lot of strength, so we won't have to worry about the negative efficiency. And of course, I'll be running Umbral Intensify. I will not be using Transient Fortitude because I do not want the negative duration. This, of course, is slightly better because it's more strength, but we get that negative 27% duration. And this will take it down to 128%. And Splinter Storm already has a low duration. Yes, you can refresh it with Mass Vitrify, but I don't want to be pressing a lot of buttons just to refresh Splinter Storm. You get what I'm saying? So it's up to you if you don't mind that. That will be the next best thing. And now for our range increases. We'll have Reach here, Stretch. If you want to run Archon Stretch and do some other funny shenanigans, you can. I'm just using this. And a rank 4 overextended, because I don't want to lose a lot of strength. With the 250% range, it increases the explosion radius on Mass Vitrify, and we get a decent radius on Splinter Storm. Our energy, I'll be running Primed Flow. And lastly, Prime Redirection for the large shield pool, because she already has damage reduction on Splinter Storm, and our Sentinel will help us with some status cleansing. So that is the Gara loadout right here. It's very simple, very basic, nothing over the top. To help us with crits and triggering Arcane Fury, this will be easily done with my Sentinel. The Sentinel in question is Worm Prime. All because of Negate, prevents status effects, and of course Guardian instantly replenishes our shields. Now Assault Mode is going to attack enemies. And when it attacks enemies, it's going to, of course, crit. And the weapon I'm using is the Tazakor. It has a 5% crit chance, but it fires really fast, and it triggers a lot of electricity and other status effects. I'm running Nourish, so I already have Viral on this weapon, so I went with Gas and Radiation and its innate electricity. When you summon enemies, you can see right there, we triggered Arcane Fury without even attacking anything. Look at that. It's refreshing fairly easily. Alright, here's an alternative build for your stat stick if you do not want to utilize melee crescendo. And all you have to do is switch it on for melee exposure. This setup is better for group play and other types of missions that won't give you a lot of time to actually do finishers. So all I did was replace one elemental damage mod for 2 initial combos. So here, I have Galvanized Reflex. Don't worry about the heavy attack efficiency, but on melee kill, you gain initial combo. This stacks up to 4 times. And I have here Corrupt Charge. So on the Warframe build, you're going to be running Ready Steel, which is a 24 initial combo. Pretty much a 2 times combo. So yeah, folks, if you like this, do give it a try. But anyway, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Anyway, folks, yeah, this is the build. Hope you enjoy it. Try it out. It's good. All right, bye. Bye.